Hey everyone, welcome back. And if it's your first time here, just plain welcome. Last week on 2A Tuesday, I talked about a real problem with the ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. Basically, what they were doing was using your tax dollars to spy on many of you, especially if you are someone who frequented various gun forums or gun-themed groups within the Facebook ecosystem. I'm going to have a card up in the corner, so check that out. You can go watch that video. A lot of you have already seen it, and that was important, right? And it was enough grounds to justify dismantling the ATF altogether, if you ask me. But as they say on the infomercial, but wait, there's more. And today, we're going to get into some of that more. And first, I want to give a shout out to Lee Williams at The Gun Writer. Second Amendment investigative reporter, does a lot of work with Second Amendment Foundation's investigative reporting projects. But at The Gun Writer, his Substack, he has done a lot of work and compiled a series of stories that I am referencing today. I'm going to have links for all of those down in the description, and I invite you to go check it out, subscribe to his Substack, give him some love because he deserves it. He does a lot of fantastic work finding some of the 2A issues that plague us, especially with the ATF. And we're going to start with his most recent report, right? And it was basically just a breakdown of press releases from the ATF. Now, they have various zones, right? And there's, I think, 25 of those. And he looked at press releases out of 10 of those. Let's see. There were 22 total press releases, all told. These were various arrests that had been made, cases the ATF was claiming that they had stepped in and they were taking care of gun criminals. But when you look at these, what Lee found was that exactly 2 of them out of 22 incidents, 22 different press releases, where the ATF actually, only 2 of these, the ATF actually led any kind of investigation. And they were really small investigations. These were not massive criminal undertakings. So what were the others? What were the other 20? What they were cases where local cops made an arrest. The ATF comes in and basically tries to claim credit for the arrest and the subsequent prosecution. Kind of shady. In and of itself, it's shady. A lot of local cops really resent the feds coming in general, especially taking over an investigation. But it gets worse when they didn't investigate. Williams notes that there's an estimate that about 80% of the time what ATF agents are doing, and this is assuming I'm remembering the report correctly, but basically what a lot of them are doing is they're sitting in their office between 9 and 5 and 9 in the morning, 5 in the afternoon, answering phone calls and writing up charges for suspects they've never seen. They had no part in the investigation. They weren't involved in the investigation, the arrest, questioning the suspect, much of anything, apparently. They're writing up the charges and then claiming credit for these cases. Now, this is pretty shady. In and of itself, we can make you can make the argument that because local authorities can't prosecute federal cases, there's a certain amount of this that's expected. Okay, maybe. But let's also keep in mind, this is the ATF that has a long track record of screwing the pooch. Anyone else remember Waco? Ruby Ridge? Those are just some of the incredibly problematic cases the ATF's pursued in the past. But again, those are in the past. Clearly, they've cleaned up their act. No, and we'll get to that in a minute. Let me get this. There is another case involving a man named Paul Szabo. He owns a gun store, and a former employee, he fired him. And that employee reportedly stole a gun, a Ruger American rimfire, valued at about $350. Szabo apparently knew who stole it, knew it was the employee, and he called the ATF. Hey, it's a stolen gun. This is what the ATF should be kind of focusing on, right? The ATF told him to call the local cops. Now, Szabo did, and sure enough, the former employee was found. He was prosecuted. ATF had nothing to do with it. Now, let's keep in mind that the ATF still seems to have plenty of time to harass local gun stores. In the video last week, I talked about how an ATF agent that was involved, or ATF inspector that was involved in the report of them spying on lawful gun owners just discussing firearms, how he had completely shown out at a gun store that he then began revocation hearings to take this gun store's federal firearms license. They've got time for that. They can't investigate a stolen gun. But what else do they have time for? Well, let's talk about the case of a Navy sailor named Patrick Tate Ademiak. And I hope I'm pronouncing that last name correctly. But Tate Ademiak was, again, a Navy sailor, a master at arms, which is basically military police for the Navy. A lot of people fill the role of shore patrol. The masters at arms are the people who are specifically trained. He was going through the process to become a Navy SEAL officer. He also had a side hustle where he sold gun parts and gun accessories, all perfectly legal parts. He also bought some guns here and there within, that were ostensibly legal. And he had a non-firing replica of a Sten submachine gun. It's a very famous British World War II machine gun. It's one of my favorite designs of all times. Very simple, very straightforward, so cool, right? The ATF raided him. They wanted to label a replica M249 as a machine gun. Couldn't quite pull that off. But what they did with the Sten is some of the shadiest shit I've ever heard from the ATF. And considering Randy Weaver at Ruby Ridge was able to get off on charges because of entrapment, that's saying something. See, what Ademiak had was, again, a non-firing replica. It was not built to specs. It was not intended to become a functional firearm. So what the lead agent on this case did was he started taking this thing apart. He took the barrel off and replaced it. Again, remember, this is a non-functioning, this is not a rifled barrel on it. And he replaced it with a Sten barrel from the ATF's collection. It didn't fit. So he put electrical tape on it to get it to fit and had to jam it into the weapon. He had to jam it in so hard, according to Williams, that they could not seat a magazine in the mag well, right? Because this barrel was protruding through too much for the magazine to seat. He then took out the fake bolt and put in a Sten bolt, again from the ATF's collection. In other words, he's already done some pretty extensive modifications that really aren't necessarily, something most people would even try. Because he couldn't put a magazine in, he loaded one round. Pulled the trigger, or I should say, the trigger was pulled. I'm not entirely sure a person pulled it directly. But the trigger was pulled and the round fired. Because this is a open bolt design, the agent said, it's a machine gun. Now, never mind that Ademiak never made these modifications. He didn't have the stuff to make the modifications. He bought a non-functioning replica over the internet that was shipped directly to him with he didn't go on the dark web to find this thing. This was the kind of purchase any of us can make, right? I would probably get a non-firing replica of a Sten because I think it's a cool design. I'd love to have it up back here. Okay? I won't do that now because of what they did to him. And if you're thinking, hey, no big deal, that'll come out in court. Just wait. Because, see, he was also charged with having a couple of machine guns that were apparently Mac 10s. Now, the Mac 10 is a machine pistol, right? It was in a bunch of movies back in the 80s. It was what a lot of guys wanted. It was kind of cool. So the company that built the Mac 10 built semi-auto versions and sold them. You could buy them. I remember seeing these things available for sale. They're semi-auto only. Tater Demiak apparently had a couple of those and was charged. So again, we have someone who had a perfectly legal firearm. It was described as a machine gun simply because of its overall design. And this case went to court. How, I don't know, but it did. And Demiak got 20 years in prison for this. 20 years. His naval career ruined. His chance of being a SEAL, over. Right? His side business, which never bought or sold guns as a business, somehow alerted the ATF. They could troll gun broker, find a guy, set him up, because that's really what this is, and send him to prison for 20 years. They can't actually respond to a licensed gun dealer going, hey, I got a former employee who just stole a gun. You want to go get him? They can monitor what we do on social media, what we do on web forums. They can monitor that and look at whether or not we are buying or selling guns back and forth with people in our own state or in other states, complying with all relevant laws. All of that is perfectly legal, for the record. They can watch that. They can monitor that. They can continue to monitor after they've decided there's no crime being committed. And they can't actually lead their own investigations. They are too busy basically stealing the thunder from local investigators, from local police. Okay, look, let's be honest. I get that the feds have to prosecute federal crime. I get that. Where does the ATF figure into this? Because truth be told, a U.S. attorney, someone from the U.S. Attorney's Office, could handle this. They could write up the charges. They could do this all on their own. Some intern at the FBI could write it up and a senior agent just sign it. You do not need an entire agency doing this shit. Right? What the hell? Kash Patel, you're running the ATF. If you see this, and I realistically, I know you probably won't, but if you do, for some reason, for the love of all that is holy, do something about this stupidity. Please. President Trump, dissolve the ATF, roll it into the FBI. There's other steps to be taken, sure, but those can be discussed too. This needs to end. There's no way our tax dollars should be supporting this bullshit. Right? I'm sorry. But that's what I'm thinking. I want to know what you think. Do you think the ATF is actually perfectly justified in what they're doing? Do you think I'm getting something wrong here? Let me know. Go down in the comments. Tell me what you think. While you're down there, hit like, subscribe, all that stuff. Could use the support. Interaction is good for the channel as far as YouTube is concerned. And I could use all of it I can get. What channel couldn't, right? If you want to support the channel, there's some links down below. It's an affiliate link for the Liberty Shop. There's my Substack. I have a store that's attached to the Substack, so you can check that out. Got some merch there. Got some other stuff coming out for that merch store very soon. If you just want to kick a couple bucks, there's a Ko-Fi, or coffee, however the hell you pronounce it, link down below. And if you can't do any of that, tell you what, like and subscribe is plenty. If that's all you do, I am perfectly happy. But try to find, someone, maybe somewhere you want to share this. Do so if you can. If it's appropriate, go right ahead. That'd be a big help too. And on that note, I'm going to wrap it up, and I will see you all in the next video.